This story is about Evelyn, a wife whose luxurious life was secretly targeted for elimination by those closest to her mother-in-law and her own husband. Even more terrifying, the evil intention was exposed by the panic of a very loyal housekeeper. Imagine, while cooking in the kitchen, her housekeeper suddenly pulled Evelyn's arm, whispering frantically, "Ma'am, you're in danger. Let's get out of here. Please, you have to trust me." How did Evelyn survive? What cruel plan was hidden in that grand house? And how did she get her revenge? Before we delve deeper into the first chapter, make sure you've liked this video, subscribed to the Sarita Momo channel, and turned on the notification bell so you don't miss the continuation of this story. And most importantly, comment below right now. Write your name, your city, and the word present. Let's see who is ready to accompany Evelyn on her journey. Let's begin. The morning air in the elite Bel Air neighborhood felt cool. However, behind the high gates of Michael and Evelyn's residence, something far colder and more piercing was lurking. Evelyn, with a linen apron tied neatly around her waist, was stirring spices on the black marble countertop. She was preparing a spicy oxtail soup, a complicated dish that required time and love. Her mind was filled with simple joy. It had been a long time since her husband, Michael, and her mother-in-law, Mrs. Davis, had been this warm. In the last few days, Michael had suddenly been praising her cooking. Meanwhile, Mrs. Davis, known for her coldness and criticism, had been frequently asking about her well-being. This sudden attention felt sweet, yet it also left an echo of unease in a corner of her heart. Evelyn tried to dismiss the suspicion. "They're probably starting to realize the meaning of family," she reassured herself. As Evelyn began to sauté the spices, the sound of elegant footsteps was heard from the living room. Mrs. Davis appeared at the kitchen doorway, as if on patrol rather than just passing by. Her smile was so wide, too wide for a mother-in-law who usually only offered a cynical smirk. "You look very enthusiastic, Evelyn, Mrs." Davis's voice was melodious, but to Evelyn, it sounded like a song played at the wrong tempo. "Of course, ma'am," Evelyn replied, trying to sound cheerful. "I'm happy to see you and Michael getting along with me so well these days. It feels like it's been a long time since I've felt this warmth." Mrs. Davis stepped forward, her hand, laden with expensive jewelry, reaching out to touch Evelyn's shoulder. The touch made Evelyn flinch slightly. Mrs. Davis had almost never touched her, except to point out a mistake. "Oh dear, of course we're getting closer. We're family, and we realize how precious you are in this house," said Mrs. Davis. Her eyes swept over the luxurious kitchen. They paused for a moment on the diamond watch encircling Evelyn's wrist, her most expensive wedding gift. "Especially the assets and all the comforts you manage. All of that is the result of your hard work, and we appreciate it." Evelyn felt Mrs. Davis's touch as a grip, not an embrace. She sensed a tone of ownership and calculation behind the words assets. But she dismissed it again. "Maybe it's just my feeling because I'm used to her cold demeanor," she thought. In another corner of the room, in the connected dining area, Maria, the housekeeper who had worked there for 3 years, was setting the table with meticulous care. Maria, who was usually talkative and liked to hum pop songs while working, was silent this morning. Her movements were stiff, and her eyes occasionally glanced at Evelyn and Mrs. Davis, full of hidden worry. Evelyn caught a glimpse of Maria's pale face, but again, she focused on Michael, who had just entered. Michael, in a freshly cleaned, expensive suit, walked over and, without preamble, hugged Evelyn from behind. "My beautiful wife, you don't have to go to all this trouble. You should be relaxing," Michael whispered in Evelyn's ear. His kiss on her cheek felt like a performance. "It's all right, honey," Evelyn replied, trying to enjoy the rare attention. "I'm happy to serve you both. Besides, you have a flight out of town today, right? When will you be back? I'll pack your suitcase." Hearing those words, Michael released his hug. His expression suddenly became a little tense. "Oh, that will probably be the day after tomorrow. There's some urgent business I have to take care of out of town. Anyway, you just stay at home, okay? Don't go anywhere." There was a long pause. Michael leaned in, looking straight into Evelyn's eyes, and repeated with exaggerated emphasis, "Take good care of yourself. Don't let anything happen to you, okay?" Evelyn felt a sense of déjà vu. Her husband repeated that phrase, and each word felt heavy, as if he were giving a final instruction, not just a loving message. Evelyn turned her head towards Maria. This time, Maria was staring at her. Maria's face looked like someone who had just witnessed a horrific scene. The fear was real. Maria shook her head slightly, a movement as quick as lightning. Her expression pleaded for Evelyn to understand. Again, the interaction was cut short. Mrs. Davis cleared her throat loudly, diverting Evelyn's attention. "That's enough. Evelyn, focus on your soup. Don't think too much about Michael's schedule. We both just want you to know that we love you very much." "Yes, honey, we love you very much. We want to see you safe and happy in this house," Michael added, his smile forced again. Although Evelyn's logic rebelled, telling her that Michael and Mrs. Davis were the people she loved most, her woman's intuition screamed. They were lying. Something was wrong. This wasn't affection. This was a mask. Evelyn returned to stirring the oxtail soup. The steam from the pot felt suffocating, and suddenly, the fragrant smell of the spices smelled like gunpowder. She tried hard not to show her anxiety. She had to stay calm. Mrs. Davis and Michael then went to the living room, leaving Evelyn alone. They spoke in whispers that Evelyn couldn't hear, but their glances occasionally returned to the kitchen, as if they were counting down the time. Evelyn took out her phone, typing a message to her friend, Andrew, an amateur private investigator with a wide network. She simply typed, "I have a bad feeling. Something is strange with Michael and his mom. Please find out what they've been up to for the past 2 or 3 days." She locked her phone, put it back in her apron pocket, and took a deep breath. The silence between the clinking of spoons and knives in the kitchen felt like a suppressed scream. Michael and Mrs. Davis, the two people who were supposed to be her protectors, now felt like two predators waiting for their prey to let its guard down. Evelyn suddenly remembered. Last night, she had woken up and heard a strange voice from Michael's room. She thought Michael was on a business call, but his voice was too low and tense. She had approached, but then she heard Mrs. Davis's hoarse whisper, "Be careful, she might wake up. Just do it as we planned." "You want all of that, right?" At that moment, Evelyn had retreated. She thought she had misheard. Now she realized she might not have. Evelyn turned off the stove. The soup was ready. She looked at her reflection in the kitchen window. Her face looked tired. Her eyes showed a faint fear. She had to get out of there, at least to think clearly. But she needed an excuse. As she turned to get a bowl, a hand suddenly grabbed her arm firmly. It was Maria. Her face was now deathly pale, her eyes wide, and she pulled Evelyn's arm with unexpected strength. Ma'am, not here," Maria whispered, her voice choked. She looked like someone who had just seen a ghost. "Maria, what is it? Calm down," Evelyn urged, trying to free her arm. Maria didn't care. She pulled Evelyn through the back door of the kitchen and into the garden. Her breath was ragged. She kept pulling, ignoring Evelyn's protests. In her eyes was pure terror. Terror that convinced Evelyn that this was not just a drama. "Ma'am, you're in danger. Let's get out of here. Please, ma'am, trust me," Maria cried in a hysterical whisper. Tears streamed down her cheeks. They're planning an accident. They want all your assets." Evelyn's heart felt like it stopped beating. She was stunned. Her brain refused to process the information she had just heard. Michael, her husband, and Mrs. Davis, her mother-in-law, were planning an accident. "Maria, don't be ridiculous. That's my husband." "That's his mother," Evelyn exclaimed. But Maria had already pulled her to the back gate. "I heard everything." Last night, they were on the phone with someone, talking about the right time. They said the accident had to look natural. "Ma'am, please, I beg you." "I heard everything," Maria pleaded, her tears now wetting Evelyn's cheeks. Evelyn didn't know whether to believe her or not, but she saw absolute sincerity in Maria's eyes. The danger signals from Mrs. Davis and Michael, Maria's anxiety since this morning, the whispers from last night, everything suddenly lined up to form a terrifying conclusion. She took a deep breath, swallowed her fear, and made a life-altering decision. She followed Maria. The two of them slipped out of the back gate, leaving the luxurious house, the kitchen filled with the aroma of spicy oxtail soup and two evil people waiting for the right moment to act. Evelyn only had her phone and a small wallet. As they ran away from the house, Evelyn looked back one last time. She was shocked. Behind the glass of Michael's study, she saw the silhouettes of her husband and her mother-in-law laughing, looking towards the kitchen, as if they were waiting for something terrible. Evelyn finally believed that in her own luxurious home, her mother-in-law and her husband were secretly planning her accident to take over all her assets. Evelyn had now escaped with only her most precious asset, her life and Maria's loyalty. The quick decision was made, but the danger was not over out there. Mrs. Davis and Michael would soon realize that their prey had escaped. Evelyn and Maria's escape felt like a flight from a nightmare that had become a reality. They were panting, not just from physical exhaustion, but from the weight of the terror they had just shouldered. They continued to run through the narrow alleyways behind the elite residential complex, alleys rarely used by luxury cars. Evelyn was still wearing a dirty apron and house slippers, a stark contrast to her pale, tear-streaked face. Her phone vibrated in her apron pocket, but she didn't dare to look at it. "We're far away, ma'am." "We're far away!" Maria gasped, her voice filled with a mixture of relief and fear. Maria, despite her small frame, had a surprising strength, driven by panic and loyalty. Evelyn leaned against a rough concrete wall, trying to catch her breath. "I can't believe it," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I can't believe it's all true. Maria, are you sure you didn't mishear? Maybe it was just a business conversation. I misunderstood." Maria grasped Evelyn's hand. Her gaze was firm, a far cry from her usual submissive demeanor. "Ma'am, listen to me. I've been serving you for 3 years. I know you're a good woman. I know you don't deserve this." Last night's conversation, I heard it clearly. Maria then recounted the details with teary eyes, explaining how she had woken up in the middle of the night to get a drink and heard a low voice from Michael's study. "Mrs. Davis said, 'The accident has to happen today, ma'am. Right before Mr. Michael leaves for his trip, so he has a strong alibi. They weren't using a gun or poison, ma'am. They planned something that would look more natural.'" Maria took a sharp breath. "They talked about a gas leak. They've already tampered with the water heater in the storage room. They said that when you're in the kitchen for a long time, the smell of gas won't be as noticeable because of the ventilation. After you finish cooking, they were going to ask you to get something from the storage room connected to the kitchen. They hoped you would turn on the light and boom." Maria couldn't continue. She covered her face. "And they mentioned your name while laughing, ma'am. Laughing as if it were a dirty joke. They said the insurance and the will would make them rich. They have no heart." Hearing such horrific and specific details, the wall of denial in Evelyn's heart crumbled. It wasn't just a vile plan. It was the way they had chosen the scenario of the accident, planned in her own home, amidst the false warmth they had presented that morning. "The spicy oxtail soup I was cooking. It was supposed to be my last meal," Evelyn thought. She felt nauseous, not from hunger, but from a betrayal that cut to the bone. I have to call the police?" Evelyn said, her hand trembling as she reached for her phone. "No, ma'am, not yet." Maria stopped her. "They're smart, ma'am. Mr. Michael must have all the house and your phones tapped. If you call the police now, they'll know immediately. And they'll twist the facts. They'll say you're crazy, or, worse, they'll blame me because I'm just a housekeeper." Evelyn fell silent. Maria was right. Michael was a director of a large company who always relied on advanced technology, and Mrs. Davis had extensive social connections. Their words would be far more believable than Maria's testimony, or even Evelyn's, who appeared shocked and unstable. "Where do we go, Maria? I didn't bring anything." "My ID. Everything is in my work bag in my room," Evelyn whispered, feeling like a leaf carried by the current. "Don't worry, ma'am. Follow me. I have a place." "A place they would never think of," Maria said, her eyes radiating a confidence Evelyn had never seen in her. "I have a small rental at the edge of the city. Just a simple shack. But it's safe, ma'am. I guarantee that none of their connections can reach there." Although her heart screamed in protest at the thought of entering such a simple and unfamiliar environment, Evelyn knew she had no choice. She followed Maria, walking, taking a crowded public bus, an experience she had forgotten for the last 15 years since she was still struggling to build her career. As they were crammed on the bus, Evelyn's phone vibrated again. A message from Michael. "Darling, the oxtail soup is delicious. Hurry to the storage room. There's a gift box from me there. I want you to open it right now." A cold shiver ran down Evelyn's spine. The storage room, a gift box, it must be their code. It was the trigger that would make her turn on the light, cause a spark, and end her life. She stared at the message, tears streaming down her face. Maria saw it and immediately snatched the phone, turning it off. "That's enough, ma'am. Don't open it again. Let's focus on our safety," Maria said firmly. "They'll be panicking soon. They must be wondering why you haven't gone to the storage room yet." The journey to Maria's rental felt like traveling 1,000 miles. Upon arriving, Evelyn was shocked to see how simple Maria's living space was. A small room with a mini kitchen, no air conditioning, and only one folding bed. The smell of simple cooking and humidity immediately greeted her. But this place felt safe, much safer than her luxurious home that now felt like a death trap. Evelyn sat on the floor, leaning against the plywood wall, hugging her knees. Her tears flowed freely, not because of the condition of the place, but because of the bitter realization of love and betrayal. She cried for all the time she had spent pleasing her husband, all the money she had entrusted to Mrs. Davis to manage. "Why, Maria? Why are they so cruel? I gave them everything," Evelyn sobbed. Maria sat next to her, touching her shoulder gently. "Because they're greedy, ma'am. Your wealth is too much, too tempting. They didn't love you. They loved what you have." Maria then told her about her experiences in the house, how she often heard Mrs. Davis and Michael talk about Evelyn's assets with jealousy and envy. "They often belittled you behind your back, ma'am. They said you were just lucky to marry Mr. Michael. But all that wealth was the result of your own hard work." Maria's story was the final nail in the coffin of her marriage. Evelyn, who was a successful real estate entrepreneur before marrying Michael, had foolishly put most of her assets in her husband's name for the sake of trust. She hugged Maria tightly. "Thank you, Maria. You saved my life. You're the only honest person I have now." The panic began to subside, replaced by the embers of anger. Evelyn stood up. She took Maria's phone and searched for the contact of someone she trusted implicitly. Mr. Wright, the best lawyer she had ever known, who had previously handled the legalities of her company. "We have to move fast, Maria. They'll soon realize I'm missing. I can't be seen as dead, but I also can't be seen as alive," Evelyn said, her eyes now glinting with determination, not tears. Her face, which once looked like a victim's, now transformed into that of a warrior. Maria nodded, ready to support. "Whatever you command, ma'am, I'm ready." Evelyn called Mr. Wright. Her voice was tense but clear. She told him everything, without omitting any detail of the vile plan. Mr. Wright was silent for a long time on the other end of the line. "Mrs. Evelyn, this is a very dangerous situation. You must make a statement immediately. But if you return to the house, your life will be in danger. The solution is for you to disappear, truly disappear for a while. I will handle filing a missing persons report with the police with the alibi that you were depressed and ran away, not that it was an accident," Mr. Wright explained, his voice serious. "That will give us time to gather evidence and freeze all your assets that are still in Michael's name. We'll make them think you've gone far away, maybe even that you're no longer alive, but without a body. The absence of a body will delay the payout of the insurance and their inheritance." Evelyn agreed. It was the smartest and safest strategy. Disappear and become a ghost. As night fell, the news of Evelyn's disappearance began to spread. Michael and Mrs. Davis appeared on the news, pretending to cry and issuing very convincing statements of concern about Evelyn's mental state. They even accused Evelyn of running away with a large amount of money to cover up the fact that they were the real predators. Evelyn and Maria watched the drama unfold on the small television in the rental. Evelyn's hands clenched into tight fists. "They even dare to slander me in public. I will not let them get away with this." In the midst of the panic and chaos created by Michael and Mrs. Davis, Evelyn was actually devising a plan for revenge. The decision to trust Maria and run had given her a second chance. She would not only take back her assets, She would destroy the lies and greed that had tried to take her life. Evelyn grabbed Maria's phone and called Mr. Wright again. "Sir, please contact Andrew immediately. I need eyes and ears inside that house. I need concrete evidence, and prepare the divorce papers. I will deal with them." Evelyn had now transformed from a victim into a warrior. With the help of Maria and Mr. Wright, she began to build her fortress. However, in that luxurious house, Michael and Mrs. Davis had already started their game, pretending to be a grieving husband and mother-in-law. They were unaware that the woman they thought was financially and emotionally dead was now watching them from the shadows. That night, in the small, damp rental, far from the hustle and bustle of the city, Evelyn did not sleep. She sat on Maria's folding bed, her back against the cold wooden wall, while Maria slept soundly, exhausted after a stressful day. But for Evelyn, a troubled mind was far more tiring than running. Her mind kept replaying the scenes from that morning. The fake smiles of Michael and Mrs. Davis, Maria's hysterical warning, and the cold betrayal. Evelyn picked up the old phone of Maria's that she was using. She had successfully contacted Mr. Wright, her trusted lawyer, and Andrew, her clever friend. Now it was time to strategize. Mr. Wright was a meticulous legal expert. He advised Evelyn to remain missing and cut off all communication. Evelyn's uncertain whereabouts disappeared without a trace, and without a body, was the key to freezing all assets and delaying the insurance payout. Michael and Mrs. Davis can't do anything if the inheritance claim can't be verified. "They'll panic," Mr. Wright had said over the faint phone line. "They will issue public statements convincing everyone that you committed suicide or ran away due to depression. That's their standard trick to cover their tracks." And sure enough, when Evelyn turned on Maria's small television, she saw a nauseating sight. On the screen, in front of the gates of her luxurious home, Michael stood next to Mrs. Davis. Both were perfectly dressed in mourning attire. Michael held a handkerchief, occasionally dabbing at his crocodile tears, while Mrs. Davis put on a sad face adorned with false concern. "We are begging," Michael's voice trembled on the television. "To anyone who sees my wife, Evelyn, please let us know. Evelyn is in a very unstable mental state. We believe she ran away due to work pressure and may have taken a significant amount of company money with her." Seeing the charade, Evelyn's entire body trembled with rage. They not only tried to kill her, but they also tarnished her reputation in public, accusing her of being insane and corrupt. The anger erased the last remnants of sadness and doubt in Evelyn. She no longer saw Michael as a husband who had gone astray, but as an enemy who had to be destroyed. Evelyn immediately contacted Andrew. Andrew, who worked as an interior designer but had a hobby of analyzing crimes, was the perfect asset for this task. "Andrew, I need your help." "I want you to do two things," Evelyn commanded, her voice now cold and firm. "Just name it Eve." "I'm ready," Andrew replied, his tone filled with concern but also determination. "First, I want you to go into the house. Maybe tomorrow, under the pretext of visiting the grieving Mrs. Davis. Find out if there are any changes in the storage area and the back kitchen they mentioned. It might still be a trap. Second, I need proof of their confession. I want you to find out if you have a very small listening device. Most importantly, I want you to plant it in Michael's study. That's where they talk most comfortably." Andrew hesitated. "Eve, that's dangerous. I could get caught." "They want me dead, Andrew. I'd rather take the risk and expose this crime than live in fear," Evelyn urged, her voice laced with a promise of revenge. "I'm sure if they feel safe, they'll talk about the details of their plan, especially about the assets and insurance." Andrew let out a long sigh. "All right, I'll do it. I have a small bug that I usually use for jokes. I'll find a way to sneak in tomorrow." After hanging up, Evelyn felt a little relieved. She was not alone. However, she realized that her problem was not just about law and evidence, but also about finances. Michael couldn't cash in the inheritance or insurance, but he had access to several joint accounts and Evelyn's credit cards. Michael could run away or spend the money little by little. Evelyn thought hard. She had to cut off Michael's financial lifeline as soon as possible. She stood up and walked slowly to the small window of the rental. Outside, a dim street light illuminated the quiet night. She remembered that she had once created a secret account for her retirement that only she and Mr. Wright knew the password to, and it was not connected to Michael's banking network. This was her ace in the hole. Evelyn contacted Mr. Wright again, explaining her plan. "Sir, I want you to immediately activate an emergency status on all credit cards and accounts that are still in my name, but that Michael has access to. The goal is not to freeze them, but to make him panic." "What do you mean, ma'am?" Mr. Wright asked, sounding confused. "If he feels safe, he'll go on a big shopping spree, sir. He'll buy himself gifts, maybe a new car to celebrate my death. I want it so that the moment he tries to swipe a card, all transactions fail. I want him to feel a shock, so he thinks a ghost is haunting him. Panic will make him make mistakes. He'll look for cash, and that's when we'll watch his movements." Mr. Wright was impressed. "A brilliant strategy, ma'am. I'll take care of it immediately. We'll make him feel like he's losing control, little by little." Suddenly, Maria woke up. She saw Evelyn standing in the darkness, her eyes full of calculation. "Ma'am, why aren't you sleeping?" Maria asked with concern. "I can't sleep, Maria. I'm making calculations," Evelyn replied, turning her head. "You saved my life, Maria. Now it's my turn to save myself and avenge this betrayal." Evelyn then sat next to Maria, pondering a small detail she had missed. "The spicy oxtail soup, Maria," Evelyn said softly. "The oxtail soup I cooked this morning, was it served to them?" Maria nodded, her gaze vacant. "Yes, ma'am. Before we ran, Mrs. Davis told me to reheat it and serve it on the dining table. They ate heartily while discussing their plans. They even said it was the perfect farewell meal." Evelyn felt a wave of nausea again. "All right, now listen to me. You have to go back to the house tomorrow, Maria. You have to pretend to be very sad about my disappearance. Don't show any suspicion. Your job is to be my eyes and ears inside. Find out if Michael and Mrs. Davis still think the gas leak plan will happen or if it has been canceled." Maria looked scared, her body trembling. "But ma'am, if they suspect, they won't suspect. You are a loyal and innocent housekeeper. They are too arrogant to suspect someone of your status," Evelyn cut in, her gaze sharp. "If they ask about me, just say you don't know anything and that you're scared. You have to act like a victim, not a hero. I need you there to watch Michael and Mrs. Davis." Maria nodded reluctantly. Her loyalty overcame her fear. "I'll do it, ma'am. For you." Evelyn hugged Maria tightly. That night, in the simple rental, an unlikely alliance was formed. A wealthy woman who had lost everything except her intelligence, and a housekeeper who was risking her life for justice. Evelyn knew that Michael and Mrs. Davis must be celebrating in their hearts, celebrating Evelyn's death. They must have been imagining a life of limitless luxury, but they were unaware that the drama they had just created was only the opening act of their own destruction. Evelyn was ready to pull the rug out from under their feet. The next morning, Maria returned to the luxurious house with a face made as somber as possible. Mrs. Davis greeted her with a satisfied smile. "Maria, you're back. Good. Clean the ladies' room, and don't ever talk about what happened yesterday. Mrs. Evelyn is sick. Do you understand?" At the same time, Andrew had already devised his plan. He dressed neatly, brought a large bouquet of flowers and a box of expensive desserts, and arrived at Michael's house. "Michael, Mrs. Davis, I am so sorry for your loss." "I am so shocked," Andrew said, hugging Michael with convincing acting. "Evelyn was my best friend. I can't believe she was under so much mental pressure that she would run away like this." Michael, who was relaxing in his study, welcomed Andrew warmly. "Thank you, Andrew. I can't believe it either. I did everything for her. But it turns out she was still ungrateful." Michael continued the drama, feeling safe because Andrew was an outsider who couldn't possibly suspect them. While Michael and Mrs. Davis were busy telling false details about Evelyn's depression, Andrew moved quickly. He pretended to ask for permission to use the restroom. There, he activated the mini listening device he had prepared. The device was very small, the size of a coin, and had a strong recording capability. Under the pretext of throwing away a tissue, Andrew secretly entered Michael's study. The room was empty. His eyes immediately fell on the large antique-style wall clock. It was the perfect place to hide the listening device because it was hard to reach and rarely noticed. In a matter of seconds, Andrew attached the device behind the clock. There was only a small click, which was drowned out by the ticking of the clock itself. The first mission was a success. Evelyn now had eyes and ears in the enemy's den. Andrew returned to the living room, joining Michael and Mrs. Davis. But Michael's mood suddenly changed. He tried to use Evelyn's credit card to buy luxury goods online as a consolation prize for the tragedy that had befallen him. But every time he tried, a notification appeared. Transaction declined. Card under surveillance. Michael's face immediately darkened. He thought it was just a bank error. But after trying 3 different cards with the same result, he started to panic. "Damn it!" Michael cursed, not caring that Andrew was there. "Why are all her cards blocked? How am I supposed to buy a new car for myself?" Mrs. Davis calmed him down. "Maybe Evelyn did it before she left, Michael. She's crazy. Try using another bank account that you know the password to." Michael tried to log into another account that was supposed to be a joint account. After entering the password, he received another message. "This account is under legal review. All funds are temporarily frozen." Michael's face turned from anger to fear. He looked at Mrs. Davis with horror. "Mom, this isn't right. All the accounts are frozen. Who did this? Only Evelyn and her lawyer could do this." Mrs. Davis, who was still laughing that morning celebrating their financial freedom, was now pale. Their worry turned into terror. The woman they thought was dead or insane could still grip their necks from afar. This was the first surprise from Evelyn. Andrew, pretending to be busy with his phone, noted all this panic. He knew Evelyn had started her counterattack. Michael and Mrs. Davis had realized that although Evelyn had disappeared, the assets were not yet theirs, and as long as those assets were still in play, Evelyn was still there. In her small rental, Evelyn received a short message from Mr. Wright. "Financial attack, Phase 1, successful. They're panicking." Evelyn smiled. It was no longer the naive smile that was easily deceived, but a triumphant smile from a general who had just won the first battle. That night, Michael and Mrs. Davis spent their time in the study, whispering. They didn't know that every word of their complaints and evil plans was being recorded clearly, becoming irrefutable evidence for their own destruction. They didn't know that the ghost they had created was now gathering its ammunition, ready to strike back. The financial panic unleashed by Evelyn through Mr. Wright was a devastating blow that shattered the fortress of Michael and Mrs. Davis's arrogance. In the luxurious study that now felt like an interrogation room, Michael looked no different than a child who had lost his favorite toy. He kept hitting the refresh button on the bank's website on his computer, hoping the fund freeze was just a technical error. But every attempt always ended with the same red message, "Legal review active." "This can't be a coincidence, Mom," Michael roared, punching the mahogany desk. "Evelyn must be alive. She must have contacted Wright, and that crazy woman must have twisted the facts about the accident. She got a head start on us." Mrs. Davis, usually calm and calculating, now paced anxiously. Her silk dress looked wrinkled. She no longer cared about her public image. Her focus was now solely on the money. "Calm down, Michael. We have to be calm. As long as there's no body, we still have the insurance card. But we have to act fast. If all of Evelyn's assets are frozen, our other accounts will also be affected. And you know most of our cash comes from loans taken out against that woman's properties." "The loans we took to cover your gambling debts, Mom," Michael sneered, his voice loud. Frustration turned his fear into anger towards his own mother. "We were too confident. We should have gotten rid of her in her sleep, not waited for the drama in the kitchen." Their argument grew louder, filling the entire room. Outside, Maria, who was cleaning a flower vase in the hallway, pretended not to hear anything. But she noted every high-pitched tone and every keyword that floated out. She knew fear had made them careless, and they were starting to attack each other. Maria immediately sent a short message to Evelyn. "They're fighting in the study, talking about debts and regretting not killing you in your sleep." Meanwhile, in the small rental, Evelyn received updates from both of her spies. Maria's message confirmed the murder plot, and Andrew's call confirmed that the listening device was working perfectly. "Eve, I got the recording. I slipped in when Mrs. Davis went to the salon, and Michael was napping after being drunk last night. I've sent the file to Mr. Wright. I'm sure the recording is very strong, Andrew reported. Evelyn breathed a sigh of relief. Proof of their evil intentions and conspiracy was now in Mr. Wright's hands. But Michael and Mrs. Davis were still in that luxurious house, using her electricity and eating her food. And more importantly, they could still run away with the remaining cash they had hidden. Andrew, you have to do one more thing for me, Evelyn said. I need proof that they're still trying to access the frozen assets, or worse, that they're looking for new loans. You have to find a way to get the bank documents they've hidden. Bank documents? Andrew asked. Yes. They always keep important files in a small safe under the floor of the master bedroom. I had it installed, Evelyn explained. Mrs. Davis often boasts that the key is always on her locket necklace. I need photos of those files, especially those related to the life insurance and property loans. This was the most dangerous mission yet, taking photos from their private safe. Andrew hesitated, but the motivation to help Evelyn and bring down the deceitful pair was stronger. Evelyn then turned to her legal strategy with Mr. Wright. With the recorded evidence from Andrew, Mr. Wright had incredible ammunition. The recording was not just about the murder plot, but also about asset manipulation and insurance fraud. Ma'am, with this evidence, we can file 2 lawsuits at once. Attempted murder and financial fraud, Mr. Wright said, his voice filled with confidence. I will prepare the divorce petition in the family court and the criminal complaint in the district court. But before we drop this bombshell, we have to make them make one more fatal mistake that the public can witness. Evelyn agreed. The show had to be more dramatic. While Evelyn and her team were strategizing, Michael and Mrs. Davis found a new way to get money. They couldn't use cards or bank accounts, so they turned to the most liquid asset, Evelyn's jewelry. Let's just sell all of that woman's jewelry. The pendants, rings, bracelets she didn't take with her, Mrs. Davis suggested, her eyes gleaming with greed. That will be enough for us to survive until this asset issue is resolved and we can cash in the life insurance. The police said she's missing, not dead. Her missing status will surely be changed within a month. Michael agreed. In their minds, Evelyn would surely never return. They began to search through the closets and small safes in Evelyn's room. They collected diamond and gold jewelry of fantastic value. The next morning, Michael told Maria to call the family's private jeweler, under the pretext that Mrs. Davis wanted to redesign some old jewelry. Maria, following Evelyn's instructions, showed no suspicion. She simply agreed and called the jeweler. While the jeweler was there and Michael was trying to sell the jewelry at a discount, Andrew arrived at the house with a new excuse. He wanted to return a house key that was left behind the night before. Andrew went into the master bedroom while Michael and Mrs. Davis were negotiating with the jeweler in the living room. This was his chance. He knew Mrs. Davis always took off her safe key locket when she showered. But today, Mrs. Davis was in the living room. Andrew had to find the key elsewhere. He saw a glint of light from the dressing table. There, in a small, open jewelry box, lay a small key with a very familiar gold locket. Perfect. With his heart pounding, Andrew took the key and immediately went to the closet under the walk-in closet. He found a gap in the carpet and opened the hidden safe. Inside were Evelyn's life insurance documents with Michael as the sole heir, a forged power of attorney they had prepared, and most horrifyingly, the details of a large loan they had taken out with Evelyn's property as collateral, which was due in 2 weeks. Andrew quickly photographed every document in the highest resolution. His task was almost complete, but as he was about to close the safe, he saw a small, tucked-away folder. It was a draft letter addressed to a notary. The content was the transfer of the house's ownership to Michael and Mrs. Davis. They were planning to transfer the ownership as if Evelyn had given them full power of attorney. This was evidence of a further evil intent, property theft. Andrew managed to close the safe, put the key back, and leave the room without arousing suspicion. He immediately left the house, claiming to have a sudden client appointment. He couldn't wait to send all the evidence to Evelyn and Mr. Wright. By evening, all the evidence was in Evelyn's hands. The recording of Michael and Mrs. Davis discussing the murder plot and gambling debts, photos of the insurance documents, loans, and the draft of the ownership transfer. Mrs. Evelyn, Mr. Wright said seriously over an encrypted phone call, "We have everything. We can put them in prison for life. But we have to wait for the right moment. The moment when their destruction is witnessed by everyone, including the colleagues and neighbors they are so proud of." Evelyn smirked coldly. She already had an idea. "Mr. Wright, prepare all the documents. The divorce petition, the criminal complaint, and most importantly, the temporary seizure order for all the collateralized assets. I want us to execute this at their event. We will make them regret celebrating my death." Evelyn knew that Michael and Mrs. Davis, driven by financial panic and the belief that Evelyn was gone, would surely hold some kind of fake celebration to expedite the insurance claim and fill their empty coffers. They wanted to appear strong and powerful in front of their colleagues, and that's where Evelyn would appear. The revenge strategy had shifted from defensive to offensive, and the final stage was now in sight. Michael and Mrs. Davis were getting more desperate. The money from the sale of Evelyn's jewelry, which they thought would be enough to tide them over, was only able to cover short-term debts. The large loan secured by Evelyn's property, due in 2 weeks, became a recurring nightmare. Panic over frozen assets and the loan deadline made them lose their minds. They had to expedite the process of cashing in Evelyn's life insurance. And for that, a missing status was not enough. They needed proof of a tragedy. In the dead of night, in the study they now considered their war room, Mrs. Davis looked at Michael with wild eyes. "We have to do something drastic. Michael, we have to make Evelyn look well and truly dead. No body, no problem, but there has to be a drama that convinces the police and the insurance company." "How, Mom?" "We've canceled everything," Michael whispered, his voice filled with fear. "We can't go back to the gas plan. It's too risky, and Maria might get suspicious." "We've already ordered Maria to keep quiet, and she's just a stupid housekeeper," Mrs. Davis retorted. "We don't need to hurt Evelyn. She's already disappeared. We just need to create a convincing accident scene somewhere. Something involving her car. We'll make it look like she was depressed, lost control, and her car went off a cliff." The crazy plan was approved in desperation. They both knew that Evelyn's luxury car, a brand new black SUV, was still safely stored in the garage. Michael immediately contacted an old acquaintance, a thug named Tony whom he used to pressure clients. Michael promised him a large sum of money from the sale of the car, as long as Tony could get rid of the car and stage a tragic and convincing single-car accident. The next day, Maria, who was cleaning the garage, saw Michael whispering with a tattooed stranger near Evelyn's SUV. Maria, now brave and determined, immediately found a moment to take out her phone and secretly photograph the car's license plate and the man's face. She sent the proof to Evelyn with a short message. "Mr. Michael is arranging something with your car. There's a new plan. It looks like your car will be sold or destroyed." In the rental, Evelyn received the photo. She knew Michael was heading for a fatal error. "Sir, they're going to use my car to create a fake accident. This is our golden opportunity. Michael is going to hand over the car, which is evidence of my ownership, to a thug. We'll trap them there." Mr. Wright, who had analyzed the voice recording from Andrew, agreed. "This is perfect, ma'am. We can trap Michael with another charge, motor vehicle theft, and fraudulent insurance claims. We'll make them get caught red-handed, as if they were the perpetrators preparing the scene. This will be much more dramatic than just freezing assets." Evelyn asked Mr. Wright to immediately track her car's license plate and notify the police to be on standby. The plan was to let Michael and the thug take the car, and once they were at the agreed-upon remote location, the police would raid and find them in the middle of destroying evidence, a car that was legally still registered in Evelyn's name. That afternoon, Michael acted. He lied to Mrs. Davis that he was going to meet with a private detective to look for Evelyn. He immediately left the house with that excuse and met Tony on the side of the road. Michael handed over the car keys and a sum of cash. "Take this car, destroy it, and make it look like a horrific accident. The car has to disappear from the face of the earth. You can sell the scrap metal for yourself, Tony." Michael returned home with a fleeting sense of relief. Mrs. Davis greeted him with a hopeful smile, thinking their plan would succeed. They both sat in the study, enjoying a cup of expensive tea, and imagining how quickly they would get the insurance money. But what they didn't know was that outside, Evelyn's team had already sprung into action. Tony drove Evelyn's black SUV towards a steep mountain road, a location he considered perfect for making a car accident look natural. He drove recklessly, occasionally chuckling to himself, imagining the cash he would get. At the same time, a team of police led by a sharp detective had tracked the car's signal. Thanks to Mr. Wright's report, they moved quickly and quietly. Tony arrived at the edge of a deserted cliff. He parked the car and began to take out heavy tools he would use to push the car into the ravine. He also poured a little gasoline on the driver's seat to create the impression of a small explosion or fire after the car fell. Just as Tony was about to light a match, a large spotlight suddenly turned on, shining directly into his face. The sound of police sirens broke the silence of the night. "Police! Don't move! Hands up!" Tony was startled, his tools dropping. He was arrested on the spot, next to Evelyn's black SUV, with evidence of gasoline and a match in his hand. The police immediately contacted Michael. Michael was laughing with Mrs. Davis, imagining how the insurance money would soon be theirs. The phone rang. "Hello, who is this?" Michael answered irritably. "Mr. Michael, this is the police. The car registered to your wife, Mrs. Evelyn, has just been found. The perpetrator was trying to destroy it in a ravine." The detective's voice was cold and official. Michael turned pale. The tea in his hand spilled. What? "The car. My wife's car. She must have been trying to commit suicide. It was a tragedy. I told you she was depressed." Michael tried to go back to the script of the grieving husband he had memorized. "No, Mr. Michael," the detective cut in sharply. "The suspect we arrested, a Mr. Tony, confessed that someone hired him to get rid of this car and stage an accident. He has proof of a transfer from an account in your name." The faces of Mrs. Davis and Michael turned to horror. They looked at each other. Their wicked plan had not only failed but had become irrefutable evidence of a crime. They had created a fake accident drama that had trapped them in a scenario of destroying evidence and insurance fraud conspiracy. The police asked Michael to come to the station immediately to give a statement. "Mom, we're finished," Michael whispered. "No, Michael, no. We have to keep acting. We'll say that Tony was the person we hired to find the car, and he tried to steal it instead," Mrs. Davis urged, still trying to find a way out, her legs trembling. Michael and Mrs. Davis went to the police station. There, they were confronted by the sharp detective and Tony, who was desperate and had started to sing like a canary. Michael and Mrs. Davis tried to stick to their charade, but the detective showed them bank transfer receipts and CCTV footage of Michael and Tony's meeting. Michael and Mrs. Davis spent that night in an interrogation room, bombarded with questions that made them panic even more. Michael, who was mentally weak, finally started to make fatal mistakes in his statement, contradicting Mrs. Davis's story. In her small rental, Evelyn received a full report from Mr. Wright. "Ma'am, they've been interrogated." Michael gave a different statement from his mother's. "Now we have time. We'll let them go home and think they got away with the interrogation. They'll feel safe, and that's when we'll strike." Evelyn smirked. "Yes, Mr. Wright. Let them feel like they've won a small victory. Prepare the event immediately. I want this revelation to happen at my house, in front of everyone they respect." The fake accident drama they created had become the stage for their own destruction. They had returned home, tired and scared, but still clinging to the belief that Evelyn would never return. They planned to hold a small gathering the next day to entertain relatives and colleagues, while also showing that they were strong in the midst of tragedy. This was the moment Evelyn had been waiting for. After escaping a grueling interrogation, despite their conflicting statements, Michael and Mrs. Davis returned to their luxurious home with a fragile sense of relief. They had managed to deceive the detective about Tony, claiming he was a former employee hired to find the car who had instead tried to steal it. However, this lie drained their energy and eroded the trust between them. "You see, Michael," Mrs. Davis whispered as they entered the study, "we're still safe. They don't have any strong evidence. It's all just the word of a low-life thug and speculation." "Safe from what, Mom?" Michael threw himself onto the leather sofa. All the cards are frozen. We've sold the jewelry, and we almost got caught for that fake accident. We need to get money soon, Mom. The loan is due in 2 weeks, and if we default, all the properties we mortgaged in Evelyn's name will be seized. Mrs. Davis looked at the calendar on Michael's desk. We'll have an event tomorrow, a small gathering. We'll call it a prayer and support meeting to find Evelyn, but we'll invite all your important colleagues, the entire board of directors. We'll show them that we're strong and that Evelyn's disappearance doesn't affect our financial stability. Once they see us relaxed, they'll believe us, and we can calm the creditors. They spent that night planning the sham event, unaware that every word, every plan, and every desperate utterance was being perfectly recorded by the listening device behind the wall clock. In the simple rental, Evelyn, now much calmer and more focused, listened to the recording through a secure connection sent by Andrew. Her face was flat, without emotion, as she heard the details of how they planned to announce her permanent disappearance at the event the next day and how they would start pressuring the notary to expedite the asset transfer process. They've set the stage, Mr. Wright, Evelyn said over an encrypted phone call. Tomorrow, at my house. We'll attack them there. Perfect, ma'am, replied Mr. Wright, Evelyn's lawyer. All the documents are ready. The divorce petition has been finalized. I've also obtained a temporary restraining order on suspicion of conspiracy to commit murder and insurance fraud. And most crucially, a court-ordered seizure warrant for all the properties they mortgaged in your name. I'll handle the registration at the notary's office first thing in the morning, so there are no legal loopholes for them. Evelyn gave the final tasks to Mr. Wright and Andrew. Mr. Wright, I want you to come to the event with a legitimate court officer. Andrew, you have to get there early. You need to make sure Maria gets the signal to leave the house before the chaos begins. While the grand plan was being laid out, in the luxurious house, Michael and Mrs. Davis made their final, fatal mistake. Michael was feeling extremely stressed. To calm himself, he grabbed a bottle of expensive wine from the fridge and returned to the study. He looked at Mrs. Davis, who was busy with the guest list. I hate that woman so much, Michael grumbled, pouring wine into a glass. I gave her everything. This house, social status, and she repays me by running away, blocking my money, and making me deal with low-life cops. That's enough, Michael. Be patient, Mrs. Davis urged without looking up. I can't be patient, Mom. I want this all to be over, Michael shouted. He kicked a small table in front of him. I'm so sorry I listened to you. You're the one who told me to make her sign that general power of attorney. You said it was just a formality. But you wanted me to transfer her main properties so you could use them as collateral for your gambling debts. You ruined everything, Mom. You're greedy. Mrs. Davis slammed her pen down. Stop it, Michael! Have you forgotten who gave you the connections and the position in that company? You're just a puppet director. I'm the one who made it possible for you to marry the wealthy, Evelyn. I did all of this for us. For us, or for yourself? All those debts are your debts, Michael shouted back. I had to get rid of her. She's too smart. If she hadn't left, she would have found out all our financial secrets, Mrs. Davis retorted. I had already arranged everything, including the gas in the storage room. I was just waiting for Michael to go out of town to ask her to get something from the storage room, and Mrs. Davis stopped talking. Her breath caught in her throat. She realized she had just revealed her entire plan in detail and out loud. Michael looked at his mother with a panicked expression. Mom, stop. Don't say another word. What if someone is listening? They both fell silent, staring at each other, a cold fear creeping up their spines. They were unaware that Mrs. Davis's detailed confession about the gas manipulation, the debts, and her evil intentions was now perfectly recorded. This was the hidden confession that was more valuable than all the other financial evidence. Outside the room, Maria, who had heard the shouting, immediately sent a final message with a secret code to Evelyn, which meant that the most important evidence had been recorded. They had confessed everything. Evelyn received the message in the early morning. She smiled, a cold, deadly smile. Now she knew there was no way out for Michael and Mrs. Davis. That morning, Andrew came to Michael's house under the pretext of helping with the event preparations. He observed Maria and gave her a secret signal. Maria nodded, understanding. She immediately pretended to be sick and asked for permission to go to the market for a short while, promising to return after the event was over. Mrs. Davis, busy with the guest list, just waved her off dismissively. While Maria and Andrew were outside the house, Mr. Wright arrived at the notary's office and the courthouse. All legal documents, including the recording of Mrs. Davis's confession, were submitted to ensure that the seizure and detention orders were valid and active at the time of the event. Evelyn, in her hideout, looked in the mirror. She was no longer wearing an apron or house slippers. She was wearing an elegant evening gown, her white gold jewelry that was stored in a separate, safe, and strong makeup. She had transformed from the naive wife who was almost murdered into a woman who had returned to reclaim her throne. She contacted Mr. Wright for the last time. "Sir, I'm ready. Make sure the uniformed police and the court officer arrive right at the climax." Evelyn left Maria's small rental, the hideout that had saved her life and her dignity. She got into a car prepared by Mr. Wright, her destination, her own luxurious home. At the house, the VIP guests, colleagues, and board members began to arrive. Jazz music played. Michael and Mrs. Davis smiled broadly, playing the roles of the grieving but strong husband and mother-in-law for the sake of the business. They didn't know that the clock on the study wall was counting down to their total destruction. And the woman whose departure they were celebrating was on her way to give them the biggest surprise of their lives. The stage was set. The crystal chandeliers in the main hall of the luxurious house cast a light that reflected off the marble floors, creating a false opulence that would become the stage for destruction. Michael and Mrs. Davis stood in the middle of the room, surrounded by dozens of important guests, business partners, colleagues from the board of directors, and socialites. The prayer and support meeting they were holding felt more like a celebration. Both of them were smiling broadly, smiles that flaunted power and arrogance, even though in their hearts, the fear of debt and the police interrogation still lingered. Mrs. Davis took the microphone that was prepared in a corner of the room. "Thank you all so much for coming. Your presence is proof that our family remains strong in the midst of this tragedy. We are very confident that my daughter-in-law, Evelyn, has found the peace she was looking for, and we will do our best to continue all the businesses and legacies she left behind." The word legacy made some colleagues in the corner of the room exchange doubtful glances about Mrs. Davis's integrity. Michael took over the microphone, his eyes radiating a disgusting sense of satisfaction. "Yes, we promised to take care of everything, including the assets and properties she managed. We will ensure that the company remains stable because, well, she won't be coming back, and we are her sole heirs." The atmosphere instantly became silent. This was an unofficial announcement that Evelyn was considered dead. Michael and Mrs. Davis smiled triumphantly. They felt that with this announcement, they had gained the social validation they needed to expedite the insurance process and quell any suspicions. Right at the peak of that arrogant announcement, as Michael raised his glass for a toast, the tall main doors were suddenly pushed open with a loud bang. All eyes immediately turned to the doors. Standing in the doorway, dramatically backlit, was the figure they had thought was lost or dead. She was wearing an elegant dark evening gown, highlighting an undeniable aura of power. Her expression was calm, cold, and deadly, a far cry from the naive and innocent face they were used to seeing. She didn't walk, she glided with measured steps, her eyes fixed on Michael and Mrs. Davis. The entire room froze. The VIP guests fell silent. Some dropped their glasses, others stared in disbelief. Michael and Mrs. Davis, who had just toasted to her death, were now frozen. Their faces were ashen, as if they were seeing a ghost of their own creation. "Evelyn," Michael whispered, his voice choked. The microphone in his hand fell to the floor, producing a deafening feedback squeal. Mrs. Davis, who recovered from the shock faster, immediately took a step forward, acting panicked. "Evelyn, oh my God, you're alive! Where have you been? We were so worried about you. You drove us crazy. Come on, dear. You don't look well." She tried to embrace Evelyn, to pull her to a corner so this drama wouldn't be witnessed by the public. Evelyn stopped her advance. Her gaze pierced through the mask. "Don't touch me, Mrs. Davis," she said, her voice low but carrying full authority, echoing in the silent room. "I don't look unwell. I look like someone who has just escaped a death trap that you two created." The atmosphere grew even more tense. The guests began to whisper. At the same time, Mr. Wright entered from behind Evelyn, not alone. He was accompanied by two official, uniformed court officers and several uniformed police officers who guarded the doors. Mr. Wright carried a small projector and placed it on a nearby table. He picked up the microphone that had fallen earlier. "Ladies and gentlemen," Mr. Wright said in a loud official voice, "I apologize for interrupting this support event. I am Mr. Wright, Mrs. Evelyn's legal counsel. We are here to announce some important matters regarding the status of asset ownership in a legal lawsuit." Michael finally came to his senses. He shouted, "Wright, you have no right to be here. This is my house. Get out." "Oh, is this really your house, Michael?" Evelyn retorted coldly. "A moment ago, you said I was dead and you were my heir. Now you're kicking me out of my own house?" Evelyn signaled to Mr. Wright. The projector turned on, displaying an image on the empty wall next to the staircase. The first thing shown was a temporary seizure order. "Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Wright explained, his voice like a judge's gavel. "At Mrs. Evelyn's request and based on evidence of malicious intent and financial fraud, the court has granted a temporary seizure of all properties, assets, and accounts still registered in Mrs. Evelyn's name, and all assets mortgaged by Mr. Michael and Mrs. Davis, including this house." The entire room gasped. Michael stepped forward, his eyes bulging. "Seizure? You're crazy. This is all mine. You're a fraud. A fraud." Evelyn took a step forward, her gaze blazing. "You're the fraud, Michael. You're the fraud who tried to murder and steal. Why do you think all your credit cards and bank accounts were suddenly frozen? Because I already knew your plan. Because I knew you had mortgaged my properties for your mother's debts." Evelyn signaled again. Mr. Wright changed the projector slide. This time, what appeared was the evidence collected by Andrew. Photos of Evelyn's life insurance documents, a forged power of attorney, and the details of a large loan that was due soon. Mrs. Davis tried to pull Michael back. "Michael, don't say anything. Let's get out of here." "There's nowhere to go, Mrs. Davis," Evelyn cut in. "This is the exposé in the middle of a celebration of my death. So you have to watch until the end." Mr. Wright played the audio recording. It was the voices of Michael and Mrs. Davis from the study, the result of Andrew's bug. Mrs. Davis's voice, "I have to get rid of her. She's too smart. If she hadn't left, she would have found out all our financial secrets. I had already arranged everything, including the gas in the storage room. I had already called a technician and told him to tamper with the water heater. I was just waiting for Michael to go out of town to ask her to get something from the storage room, and Michael's voice, "Damn, I regret listening to you, Mom. We should have gotten rid of her in her sleep. Now she's got a head start on us and blocked my money." Their hateful voices and the horrific details of the gas explosion plan in the storage room were heard clearly and loudly, witnessed by all the VIP guests who had once respected them. The composure of Michael and Mrs. Davis shattered into a million pieces. The guests now looked at them with disgust and horror. "And finally," Evelyn said, her voice full of triumph, "this is the proof of the fake accident drama you created yesterday. My SUV that you tried to destroy and push off a cliff for the insurance claim." Mr. Wright displayed a photo of Evelyn's SUV, secured by the police, along with the face of Tony, the thug Michael had hired. Michael could no longer contain himself. He screamed hysterically, pointing at Evelyn. "You devil! You're the crazy one! You spied on us! You faked all of this!" Evelyn stepped forward, very close to Michael, her eyes unblinking. "I don't need to fake anything, Michael. Everything you did is the vile truth. And I thank you, because this drama has shown who you really are, two greedy fraudsters who are willing to kill for money." Evelyn then turned to the court officers. "Proceed with the process, sir. Seize all assets and properties." And to the police officers, Evelyn pointed at Michael and Mrs. Davis. "I, Mrs. Evelyn, am filing criminal charges for attempted murder, insurance fraud, and defamation. Please arrest these two perpetrators immediately." The uniformed police officers moved forward. Two officers approached Michael and Mrs. Davis. "Mr. Michael and Mrs. Davis, you are under arrest on suspicion of conspiracy to commit murder and financial fraud. You have the right to remain silent." Mrs. Davis tried to resist. "No, you can't do this. I have connections. I'll sue you all." But her efforts were futile. Their hands were cuffed, and amidst the crowd of guests who were now recording with their phones, Michael and Mrs. Davis were led out of the house they had claimed as their own. The fake memorial service ended with the cynical laughter of the guests they had considered foolish. Evelyn stood tall in the middle of the room, watching the downfall of the people who had almost taken her life, and she could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Justice had been served, and their destruction was witnessed by the whole world. The police station doors slammed shut behind Michael and Mrs. Davis, closing the drama they had created. The events at the luxurious house, the arrest in the spotlight of the VIP guests' cameras, had gone viral in minutes. The reputation they had built with such arrogance was now in ruins in just one night. They became a laughingstock, a symbol of greed that ended tragically. In the cold holding cell, Mrs. Davis cried, not out of remorse for her murderous intent, but because of the unforgivable social disgrace. "Michael, look what you've done. My good name, all those important colleagues, they saw us in handcuffs. We're ruined." Michael sat in a corner of the cell, his face blank. Pure fear had now replaced his arrogance. He was no longer the powerful director. He was just a coward caught red-handed. "It wasn't me, Mom. You were the one who was too greedy. You were the one who made me sign all those rotten loan documents. You were the one who set up the gas scenario. Now we're here. Where's all that money?" They blamed each other, showing how fragile their bond of love and business was. They knew the recording of their confession, played in public, was a social and legal death sentence for them. Meanwhile, Evelyn left the house with Mr. Wright and Andrew. She didn't say a word on the way. The strength she had displayed in public had now faded, replaced by deep emotional exhaustion. Upon arriving at Mr. Wright's office, which had become her temporary headquarters, Evelyn sat on the sofa, letting the silence fill the room. "Mrs. Evelyn, you were amazing. That was the bravest confrontation I have ever witnessed," Mr. Wright said, trying to break the silence. "Legally, we have an absolute win with the recorded confession of intent to murder, insurance fraud, and destruction of evidence. Michael and Mrs. Davis will face serious criminal charges. In addition, your divorce petition has been processed, and most importantly, all your main assets are now safe under the court's protection. There's nothing they can touch." Evelyn finally spoke, her voice soft and trembling. "I don't feel like I've won, Mr. Wright. I just feel empty. I just watched the destruction of the man I once loved and his mother. I just feel tired." The tears she had held back for days finally fell. "I'm not crying because I feel sorry for them. I'm crying because I was so foolish." Andrew, who had been a loyal friend throughout, came over and held Evelyn's hand. "Eve, don't blame yourself. You weren't foolish. You were just too sincere. And your sincerity saved you today. You did the right thing. Now focus on healing." The legal process moved swiftly. The news of their crimes dominated all national media. The board of directors of Michael's company immediately held an emergency meeting and stripped him of all his positions, clearing their name of the scandal. The colleagues and friends who had once respected Michael and Mrs. Davis now distanced themselves, refusing to be associated with the shameful case. At the first hearing, Mr. Wright presented the evidence meticulously and systematically. The voice recording from the study, the testimony of Tony, the thug who became a key witness, and the proof of the bank transfer from Michael, the evidence of their malicious intent was irrefutable. The prosecutor demanded the maximum sentence. In the courtroom, Michael and Mrs. Davis tried to defend themselves with excuses of a moment of passion and family problems, but the judge was unmoved. They couldn't deny their own voices on the recording. Mrs. Davis tried to plead with Evelyn in the courtroom, attempting one last emotional trick. "Evelyn, dear, have pity on us. I'm begging you, remember all the good I've done for you." Evelyn stood tall, She looked at Mrs. Davis without pity, but also without anger. She only felt emptiness. What good, ma'am? The good that made me have to flee my own home because you wanted me to die in a fire? The good that made you and Michael tarnish my name in public? I owe you nothing. You and Michael must face the consequences of your greed. Evelyn's calm yet sharp words erased any sympathy that might have existed from the courtroom audience. Michael, seeing how cold and firm Evelyn was, finally realized that the woman in front of him was not the naive wife he once knew. He had destroyed the only source of comfort and power in his life. Mr. Wright succeeded in getting a satisfactory verdict for Evelyn. Michael and Mrs. Davis were found guilty of conspiracy to commit insurance fraud and attempted murder. The sentences were handed down. Both received long prison sentences, far from the luxury and honor they had once enjoyed. Moreover, they were required to return all the assets they had mortgaged and all the losses they had caused, leaving them bankrupt and in debt after their release from prison. After the trial, Evelyn left the courthouse surrounded by reporters. However, she did not give any statement. She just looked up at the clear sky. "What should I do now, Mr. Wright?" Evelyn asked. "You should focus on a new chapter, Mrs. Evelyn," Mr. Wright replied with a smile. "The prison doors have closed the old chapter. Now it's time to rebuild your life. And most importantly, you need to find Maria. She is the true hero of this story." Evelyn nodded. Her heart was now filled with a deep sense of gratitude. Maria, a brave and loyal housekeeper, was the unsung hero. The court's decision was a painful but just conclusion for Evelyn. She was no longer burdened by fear or the obligation to pretend. She had gained true freedom, paid for dearly with the betrayal of those she loved. The story of Evelyn and the betrayal in the luxurious house ended at the courthouse. But for Evelyn, this was just the beginning of a new and more authentic life. After the hustle and bustle of the courtroom subsided, silence enveloped Evelyn's days. The luxurious house that had been a nest of betrayal was now sealed by the court. Evelyn chose not to return there. She felt that the house had been tainted by lies and evil intentions. She rented a small and elegant apartment in the city center, a place that gave her a sense of anonymity and tranquility. This was a place where she could be the real Evelyn, far from social expectations and the grip of the past. The legal victory brought her justice, but it did not heal her inner wounds. For several weeks, Evelyn underwent therapy. She realized that the greatest pain was not from the loss of money, which was now back in her hands, but from the loss of trust in love and family bonds. She had to learn that the betrayal of Michael and Mrs. Davis was a reflection of their greed, not her shortcomings. In her lowest moments, only 3 people were her anchors: Mr. Wright, Andrew, and most importantly, Maria. Her reunion with Maria after the trial was the most emotional moment. Evelyn picked up Maria from her small rental. As soon as they met, Evelyn didn't say a word. She hugged Maria tightly, her sobs breaking free. It was a cry of relief, gratitude, and recognition. Maria, the true hero of this story, returned the hug with equally sincere tears. "Thank you, Maria," Evelyn whispered, her voice hoarse. "You didn't just save my life. You saved my soul. You taught me the true meaning of loyalty." "You deserve happiness, ma'am," Maria replied, her eyes radiating deep respect. "I just did what was right. You were always kind to me." Evelyn felt an infinite debt of gratitude. She knew Maria had risked everything: her job, her safety, and her future just for the sake of truth. Evelyn didn't want Maria to go back to being a housekeeper. She saw great potential in her. "I have an offer for you, Maria," Evelyn said as they sat in her new apartment. "I don't want you to go back to working as a housekeeper. I need you by my side as my personal assistant, with a much better salary and benefits. And I want you to learn to manage the social foundation I'm going to build." Maria was shocked. Her tears flowed again. "Ma'am, I don't know what to say. I don't have a higher education." "The best education is a conscience, Maria," Evelyn cut in. "You have that. I'll teach you the rest. You'll be my right hand, the person I trust the most. We'll build a new future together." Maria accepted the offer, marking the beginning of a hopeful new chapter for both of them. Evelyn also held a small, intimate dinner with Mr. Wright and Andrew. A dinner far from the false glamour of her old house, filled with laughter and sincerity. Andrew, thanks to your bug, we had golden evidence, Evelyn said, handing him a thick envelope. Thank you for your courage. I hope this can help you start the interior design business you've always dreamed of. Andrew refused the money, but Evelyn insisted. I want you to design it from scratch. A house full of light, without secrets, and without a storage room that could explode. Andrew smiled and agreed. To Mr. Wright, Evelyn not only paid a fantastic service fee but also offered him the position of head of the legal counsel for her entire network of companies. Mr. Wright accepted, proud to be part of Evelyn's recovery. With the support of her new team, Evelyn began to shift her focus. She sold her old house, the house that was a silent witness to the crime. She used the proceeds from the sale to establish the Women's Justice Foundation, an organization dedicated to helping women who are victims of financial fraud and domestic violence. She wanted to use her bitter experience to be a light for others. Slowly, Evelyn rediscovered the identity she had lost in the shadow of her marriage. She once again became a smart and visionary entrepreneur. She worked hard, but this time, she worked with the purpose of improving her small world and the world of others. Maria quickly learned to be a capable and empathetic operational manager of the foundation, representing Evelyn's humanitarian side. Every day, Evelyn felt stronger. She had filed a countersuit for defamation, ensuring that Michael and Mrs. Davis would never be able to rise again, financially or socially, after their release from prison. She also officially removed Michael's name from all remaining assets and inheritance, ensuring that her past was truly severed. Evelyn's healing journey was marked by self-understanding. She realized that this second chance was a gift. She was no longer looking for romantic love. She was looking for peace and meaning. She learned that her true home was not a magnificent building, but a place where she felt safe and valued. And that place was next to the people who sincerely loved her, like Maria and Andrew. Evelyn spent an afternoon on the balcony of her new apartment, breathing in the fresh air and looking at the horizon. She received a call from Mr. Wright, who reported that her old house had been officially sold and the funds had been transferred to the foundation. An overwhelming sense of relief washed over her. She had buried her past. Evelyn was now fully ready for the final chapter. She was no longer the naive and easily deceived Evelyn. She was a warrior, a mentor, and a philanthropist. Her new life began, full of second chances that she had created for herself. Evelyn's world had now completely changed. She no longer lived in a haunted, luxurious house. Thanks to Andrew's elegant design, she now occupied a modern minimalist house, surrounded by a beautiful, light-filled garden. The house was built on the philosophy of transparency, glass walls, open spaces, and no hidden rooms. The house was a reflection of her new soul, honest, open, and peaceful. In her new place, Evelyn found true meaning. She led the Women's Justice Foundation with a burning passion. The foundation had grown rapidly, becoming a support center for women who had been financially deceived or intimidated. Mina was now the head of operations for the foundation, appearing confident and competent. Mina not only handled the administration, she was the ambassador of Evelyn's conscience, always reminding Evelyn of the importance of sincerity. Evelyn, in her elegant work dress, sat at her desk overlooking the garden. She was no longer the wife of or the daughter-in-law of, but Mrs. Evelyn, a respected philanthropist and entrepreneur. The crown she wore was not a diamond crown from her husband's inheritance, but a crown of courage and independence that she had earned through her own struggle. One sunny afternoon, Mr. Wright came to visit the foundation's office. He brought the last document, the final court decision. Mrs. Evelyn, Mr. Wright said, handing her the document. All legal processes are complete. Your assets have been returned 100%, and even more because of the increased property value. And most importantly, the sentences for Michael and Mrs. Davis are final. They have to serve the remainder of their sentences without the possibility of early parole. Evelyn took the document. She didn't feel a surge of joy, just a peaceful closure. And what about their financial obligations, Mr. Wright? They have been declared completely bankrupt, ma'am, Mr. Wright replied. All properties in their names, including Mrs. Davis's assets, have been seized to cover debts and damages. They will be released from prison without a single possession. They have truly lost everything. Evelyn nodded. Such a heavy punishment was not her goal, but it was a just consequence for their malicious intent. She had forgiven, but she had never forgotten justice. While Evelyn enjoyed an authentic peace and success, behind bars, Michael and Mrs. Davis lived in an eternal hell of regret. They shared a cramped cell, and their relationship had been completely destroyed, replaced by mutual hatred and blame. "This is all because of you," Mrs. Davis screamed one night, her voice hoarse from years of frustration. "You were the one who botched the accident plan. You were the coward who was interrogated by the police. I gave you a luxurious life, and you ruined it." "Me? You were the greedy one, Mom," Michael retorted. His once strong body was now thin and frail. "I was just a puppet you told to marry a rich woman. If you hadn't been obsessed with money, we wouldn't be here. And look at Evelyn now, the woman we called crazy and stupid. She's a huge success. She's respected. She took everything we had." Their greatest suffering was not the prison walls, but the reality they witnessed through occasional news in old newspapers. They saw photos of Evelyn smiling at the inauguration of her new foundation center, or when she received an award for her courage. They heard that Maria, the housekeeper they had looked down on, now sat in the director's chair of the foundation. They realized that the woman they had considered poor and easy to kill was the only source of their wealth and happiness. And they had destroyed that source with their own hands. That regret was a poison that was slowly killing them from the inside. Far more painful than any physical punishment. On the day of the housewarming for Evelyn's new home, she invited everyone who had supported her, Maria and the entire foundation team, Mr. Wright, and Andrew. In the middle of her short speech, Evelyn paused. She looked at everyone with teary eyes, but this time they were tears of happiness. 2 years ago, Evelyn began, her voice calm, "I almost lost everything because of the betrayal of the people I trusted most. I almost lost my life because of greed. I almost lost myself because of naive innocence." She smiled, turning to Maria. "Maria taught me that loyalty and courage are not measured by social status or education. Andrew taught me that true friendship is the best protection. And Mr. Wright taught me that the law will always be on the side of truth." Evelyn raised her glass. "I lost my old luxurious house. I lost my husband. And I lost the warmth of a fake family. But I gained something far more valuable. I gained freedom. I gained the true family that stands here with me today. And I gained a different kind of crown." She touched her head. "This crown is made of courage, sincerity, and independence. And this crown can never be taken away by anyone." With those words, Evelyn closed the dark chapter of her life and inaugurated a new chapter full of hope. She lived her life with one principle: true wealth is not in what you have, but in who you trust, and in the courage to be true to yourself. Evelyn lived happily and prosperously. She no longer sought romantic love, but she was surrounded by sincere affection and respect. She became an inspiration, not because of her wealth, but because she dared to rise from the most painful betrayal and use her strength for good. The story of Evelyn is an eternal reminder. When greed tries to destroy sincerity, truth will always find a way to win. And in the end, regret is the heaviest punishment for a heart full of evil. The moral of this story is that true wealth lies not in material possessions, but in sincerity of heart, conscience, and true loyalty. Never let love or family ties blind you to the truth, because greed can turn those closest to you into the most dangerous enemies. Learn to trust your instincts. Appreciate those who defend the truth, like Maria, and remember that truth will always be the best crown that will defeat all lies and evil intentions.